Whoa, wait a second. Yeah, I'm talking to you, the one getting sucked into an abyss of failed TikTok dances and cat memes. I get it, the endless stream is, but what if I told you your brain is actually betraying you right now? This video? It's the key to understanding why you keep making terrible decisions, and trust me, you're going to thank yourself later for staying. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you won't want to miss how to outsmart your brain. You'll probably thank me too, but hey, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Let me hit you with something real. No joke, it screws you over, and the worst part, you have no idea it's happening. Why? Because of something called cognitive bias. Ever heard of it? Probably not, because your brain conveniently likes to forget that part. Spoiler alert, it's been ruining your life all along. But don't worry, by the end of this, you'll be alright, let's break this down simply. Cognitive bias is like your brain's autopilot, but the kind that drives you into a wall. It's a mental shortcut your brain uses to save time and energy, except instead of getting things done efficiently, it makes a mess of everything. Imagine your brain as that one group project partner who always promises to help but somehow ends up contributing. It jumps to conclusions, skips logic, and boom. Next thing you know, you're wondering why you bought another pair of shoes you don't need. It's like having a broken compass that only ever points north, even when you're walking straight into a swamp. That's what confirmation bias does. It steers you in the direction you're already facing, no matter how wrong it is. So, let me ask you, ever made a snap decision and then regretted it? Like, yeah, that wasn't intuition, my friend. That was cognitive bias messing with you. Again, here's a quick tip. The next time you feel you're right about something, pause. Ask yourself, am I ignoring any evidence that contradicts what I believe? If the answer is yes, then congratulations. You've caught your confirmation bias in the act. Oh, by the way, there's a catch in this video, but you won't figure it out until the end. It's staring at you right now, in fact. So pay attention because you're already part of it. Ready for some drama? Let's talk about one of the worst bias-induced disasters in history. In 1986, NASA launched a shuttle after engineers literally them not to. Why? Because of confirmation bias. They wanted so badly to believe everything was fine, they ignored hard evidence screaming that it wasn't. Guess what happened? The shuttle blew up, costing lives and shaking the world. That's what happens when people trust their faulty brains instead of facts. Wild, right? Ever been so sure of something that you ignored the warning signs? Yeah, me too. Admit it, your brain probably tricked you. Actionable takeaway. Confirmation bias happens when we only see what we want to see. Next time you're making a big decision, seek out opposing opinions or facts that challenge your view. It might be uncomfortable, but it'll save you from bigger regrets. Not all bias is bad. In World War II, the Allies were trying to figure out where to reinforce their planes. They looked at the planes coming back from missions and said, let's put more armor where all the bullet holes are. Makes sense, right? One genius pointed out that the planes with bullet holes in critical areas. That's survivorship bias, and thanks to this insight they reinforced the right spots, saving countless lives. Here's a quick takeaway. When analyzing a situation, always ask yourself, what am I seeing? Sometimes the most important details are in the gaps you've overlooked. But wait, there's more where that came from. Let's dive into how bias affects your daily life. Cognitive bias doesn't just pop up in historic disasters, it's literally messing with your everyday life. Ever notice how you always pick the same restaurant for takeout, even though deep down you're kind of tired of it? That's status quo bias, your brain's way of keeping things familiar, even when you might want something new. Or maybe you're scrolling through social media, getting into an argument in the comments, and suddenly you're convinced you must be right because your last 10 followers agree with you. Welcome to bandwagon bias. Your brain likes backup, even if it's just a bunch of random internet opinions. Pro tip. When you're picking a place to eat or watch a movie, ask yourself, am I picking this because it's genuinely good, or just because it's what I always pick? Start shaking things up. Your brain loves its comfort zone, but sometimes stepping out of it gives you better results. Bias is like fire. When controlled, it's useful. When not, it'll burn you. Left unchecked, bias can make you blow your paycheck, trust sketchy people, or, I don't know, eat that last slice of pizza you swore you were saving for tomorrow. Yeah, I saw that. But bias isn't always the villain. Sometimes when you need to make a quick decision, like in an emergency, bias can help you act fast. The trick is knowing when your brain is helping and when it's throwing you under the bus. Pro tip, when you're under pressure, check if your decision is based on fear or actual facts. If it's fear, give yourself time to think more clearly. Don't let bias hijack your logic. Here's a question. How often do you really stop to check if your brain is telling you the truth? Not often enough, I bet. And just when you thought you were done with bias, let me introduce you to some of the many ways your brain can trip you up. Your brain doesn't just mess with you in one way. Oh no, it has an entire buffet of biases ready to ruin your day. Let me introduce you to a few classics. First up, confirmation bias. You only see what confirms your pre-existing beliefs. Think your favorite band is the best? You'll only read articles that agree with you. Congrats, you're biased. Action step. Actively seek out information that contradicts your beliefs. It'll make you a more well-rounded thinker. Next, anchoring bias. That was $1,000, now $500 sale tag. Yeah, your brain just anchored itself to that $1,000 price. Not a deal, just a trick. Action step. When shopping, compare prices without looking at what's on sale first. This avoids falling for the fake anchor price. Then, availability bias. Afraid of flying because you saw a plane crash on the news? That's your brain ignoring the fact that, statistically, you're safer in the air than in your car. Action step. Next time you're worried about something based on one story or event, ask yourself, is this really common, or does it just feel that way because it's fresh in my mind? Moving on, halo effect. Think someone is smart just because they're attractive? Your brain is basically. Action step. Separate the person from the impression. Ask yourself, am I judging them based on what they've actually done, or just how they look? And finally, Dunning-Kruger effect. You know that one person who's terrible at something but they're a genius? Yeah, that's this bias. Action step, be humble. If you feel overly confident about something, ask for feedback. You might discover blind spots you didn't know you had. And just when you thought you had it all figured out, there's still more. You know what's fun? Catching other people being biased. Ever argue with someone who refuses to accept they're wrong just because it feels good to them? Yeah, that's bias. But here's the real shocker, you do it too. And probably more often than you'd like to admit. So, when was the last time you actually questioned your own judgment? Not a rhetorical question this time. Go ahead. Drop it in the comments if you've had a moment like this. Let's share the bias blame together. Alright, time for a confession. I've been hit by bias and, surprise, I've also used it to my advantage. Once, I was so sure I knew how to handle a big project that I ignored every bit of advice given to me. Guess how that turned out? Yep, that was confirmation bias in full force, making me focus only on what I to be true. On the flip side, I've used bias for good. Ever wanted someone to like you? I used the mere exposure effect. Basically, kept showing up until they thought I was amazing. Manipulative, maybe? Effective? Absolutely. By the way, that's just a fancy way of saying the more people see you, the more they like you. Weird, huh? Pro tip, be careful about using bias on others. Sure, it works, but try not to manipulate too much. There's a fine line between clever and shady. So someone tricked you, huh? Maybe it was a slick salesperson or your friend who's always manipulating you into picking up the check. Here's how you get over it. First, stop pretending you weren't duped. Then ask, what bias did they use on me? Once you identify it, you're already ahead of the game. Simple, right? And if you use bias on someone and feel a little guilty about it, relax. We all do it. Just own up, apologize, and don't make it a habit of the time. Remember when I said there was a catch? Well, you've been a victim of cognitive bias this entire time. I've been using examples, stories, and language to play right into your availability bias. Everything I said about the worst case and best case scenarios, that was me subtly manipulating your brain. Notice how I led you through all those examples? You just experienced cognitive bias in real time. Pretty clever, right? But hey, it's for your own good. Now you know how this stuff works and you're a bit smarter than you were 10 minutes ago. You're welcome. Now here's what I want you to do. Think of one time, just when bias completely screwed you over. Got it? Now drop the word bias in the comments. Let's see who's been paying attention. Oh, and before you go, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it helped you out. Trust me, we've got a lot more brain-busting content coming your way, and you're going to want to stick around. Because let's be honest, your brain could use the help. So now that you know how your brain's been pulling the strings, what are you going to do about it? Your brain's playing tricks, but now that you're in the know, you can decide. Are you in control of your choices, or is bias running the show? Don't go back to that mindless scrolling. You've been enlightened. Start questioning your next decision. Will you let bias rule, or will you take control?